Okay, so if you've been following me, you know that I'm a huge advocate of not only jumping on the AI bandwagon, but looking at ways to apply AI to real business use cases. So I'm going to share this my personal experience with using AI in a real world situation where there was a physical meetup between me and other members of my real estate group here in Cincinnati. So this is how it worked. So let me explain a little bit about the event, and then I'll explain the technical approach on it and the solution approach. And then in the next video, we'll deep dive into the technical piece. So this event we actually had, so it's hosted here in Cincinnati. So this is me and my Cincinnati group, right? We also had people coming in from out of state, which is important. And I think out of it was 135 of us that attended, and I would say 75 were out of state, some way, some fashion. So these are different locations surrounding the Cincinnati, Ohio area. Now, as people came in, the agenda was first we were going to meet at one of the members. He's actually pretty brilliant. He's a 17-year-old member. And he's actually taken down his second home. When we say take down, he's rehabbing this house from a very distressed house into one that's fully renovated. And he's only 40% into that process. So the first step is to get all these people to meet up at Cadence House during the first period. And because we had so many people, we had to break this up into groups. So we had group 1, and they were going to meet at 10 a.m. And then we had group B or group 2, and they were going to meet at 11 a.m. And after this meeting, everyone would then make their way over to the event center. And this is where we were going to rock out the night into the moon and the stars all night and really just have, our Friendsgiving. And that Friendsgiving had, it had us on the agenda where registration was a certain time. Then after registration, there was giving and presentations and sharing like what you're thankful for and all this other good stuff. Then after that, there was dinner. Then after that, it was the after party where it was like music, cigars, drinks, and so on and so forth. So a really, really action-packed agenda. This is the challenge. The challenge is, one, communicating out what people needed to do. One, because what we had to do was break them up into these groups, right? So we had to communicate out and who was going to be assigned to what group. And then two, if people had questions about, okay, at this time frame, what was happening at this time. We also had questions, and these are real questions, right? You can see this in the log when I bring up the app. I'm coming in from this city and state. Where is the closest hotel, either to the project property or the event center? And this in this time frame here, this travel time is actually 25 minutes. Right. So we have that piece there. Okay. So that's the profile of the event. So we have this tour. It had to be time slot because we had so many people and we had to break it up. We had a full packed agenda at the event center, and we had the travel distance between the tour and the event center was important. So it was something that had to keep in mind and make sure that people were registered at the right time and people kind of flowed as expected. Okay. So with that event, this is how we set this up. So first, our members, this Friendsgiving was actually put on by the Cincinnati region. So we have over 2,700 people nationwide. And this event was really meant to be regional, like Cincinnati and all the surrounding areas. So, that meant like Columbus, Ohio, Cleveland, Ohio, Lexington, Kentucky, Louisville, Kentucky, Indianapolis, Indiana, Richmond, Indiana, and so on and so forth. So it's probably like 6 or 7 different cities surrounding. So with that, and because we had food going on, anytime that you offer food, because we are a very diverse group. I mean, there's people from different nationalities, different age groups, different religions, beliefs, and so on and so forth. But our one goal that stitches us together is real estate. So with that, anytime we have food, we're very mindful to highlight or keep in mind any dietary restrictions. Secondly, because this was a members only event, we do allow, in this Friendsgiving, we did allow them to plus one a guest or bring children if that was something that they wanted to do, because Friendsgiving felt like Thanksgiving, where it was like a family affair. So it was members only and their spouses and their, children or whatever the case may be. And sometimes they would bring friends who are interested in real estate but weren't actually members, but this event would help them kind of get a sneak peek of how we operate. So with that, we had to take in a Microsoft form to handle that intake. And on that Microsoft form, we had a slot for them, obviously, to put in their name, to put in their guest count, if they're going to bring in, a spouse or a child or wherever the case may be. Put in their dietary restrictions. This was needed for the catering company to make sure everyone was comfortable and everyone was accounted for. And then we also put in there what did they need help with to take their real estate journey to that next level. Like, what could we do as a group to take them in with that next level? So obviously, everyone needed to register so that way we can plan, and we put a deadline on that registration date, and so on and so forth. So Microsoft Forms is great for that. Now, the reason behind that, this is before we get into the AI and but we want to gather enough information for the AI to respond in a meaningful way, to make sure that the guests felt like they were heard, one, get a confirmation that the registration was received, and then if there was any events or any other things that they needed to make sure that was highlighted. So with this Microsoft form, these users are not part of the Microsoft 365 platform, right? So this is a Microsoft 365 tenant that we use for most of these communication pieces and, Excel files that we share out and all this other good stuff. So all these members are really kind of like guests or external users of the information that happens within our tenant. Microsoft Form, compared to Power Pages, compared to Power Apps, compared to maybe an Excel file, what's the best tool for this scenario? One, we can use it outside of our tenant. Two, it interacts with the Power Platform. So as we get results in, we can trigger a Power Automate that then can process that registration in the downstream format. And three, it was flexible enough to be used on the browser or a tablet or mobile phone. 97% of the usage by this particular audience is mobile phone. So we needed something to be responsive on the mobile device without recreating the form, and then two, would be able to use in any device that's needed, right? So that was why we chose the Microsoft form. Now, once we got that Microsoft form, what ended up happening next was to drop that registration inside of this SharePoint list. So as they would click submit, it will trigger an entry in this SharePoint list capturing all that information, and then that triggered a Power Automate so this Power Automate would then send them a confirmation message noting that their registration was received. That confirmation message, because again, these users are mobile users, very, very heavy. So what we end up doing, if you're mobile heavy, the more natural communication vehicle is going to be SMS or text message. And that's why this particular solution was one that I really wanted to kick the tires on, because it was two pieces I really wanted to test out. One, interacting with anonymous users who were not part of our 365 tenant. Two, communicating in a way that was text message. Most of our communication, especially from B2B or building apps within the organization, is almost 100% email. Sometimes you may get a notification within Teams. Sometimes we may trigger a notification within the Power Apps itself. But majority of the time, I would say 99.9% of the notifications or email or messaging from our solutions or apps is email. Here, it's going to be SMS. Again, because these are external users where mobile device is the number one device, and SMS is the best communication vehicle for that particular device. So now, what this would do, it would receive that message. It will trigger the AI. And really what we would do with the AI is that we would tell it that says, okay, this is first name, last name, this is their guest count, this is their meal restriction, dietary restriction, and then these are the comments that they wanted to supply that says that's what they need help with to take their real estate to another level. So we had a prompt. And the way that I handle my prompts, I don't use the prompt catalog within the Power Platform because that's a premium feature. And I try to design these applications within the standard subscription just to kind of keep costs minimal and manageable. So what I do for my prompts, I create a prompt catalog in a SharePoint list. So the first thing when this thing gets triggered, it says, go get this prompt, and there's an application key that it looks for, and then it returns the prompt to the Power Automate. Then the next line in the Power Automate is that it would then take that prompt, create the message array for the large language model. In our case, we always use OpenAI. In this scenario, we were using GPT-O or GPT-4o. And it was the latest version, I think, that came out in August of 2024. And that gave us a 16,000 token output window size. Before that version, 4.0 was given a 4,000 token window size. And sometimes we would be restricted on the type of communication that we needed. In this scenario, we didn't need the 16,000 tokens because we're mindful, and this is in our prompt, that let the LLM know, the AI know, that it's communicating to the user using SMS text. And that way it would, one, keep its feedback concise, and then two, keep its feedback length to a certain ceiling, so that way everything can flow naturally with text messaging communication, almost like a Twitter type message, right? So here we would get that prompt back. The prompt would say, you're using SMS. This is all the information about the user, and it will create that message array. And once I had that message array, I would send that to the large language model. And that large language model would then reply back with the message. And then for SMS, because you can't send SMS without some type of third-party carrier, right? It's just the same way with incoming and outgoing phone calls. You kind of need like a telephony type communication platform. For this scenario, I normally would use Twilio, but for this scenario, I was actually using ClickSend. So then what I would have is my ClickSend, and there's actually an action for ClickSend within Power Automate. And they make it super easy to get that set up. So from ClickSend to handle the SMS piece, I would have an action. This was already registered with my API security token, and then my phone number that showed that the number it came from. And then I will grab the phone number from that Microsoft form, and then that will be the message sent back to the user. And basically that message was really straightforward. It just said, we got your registration. This is the date of the event. We will see you there. And then confirm the guest count and the meal restriction if there was one, so on and so forth. Now, this is all great. Now what we would had to be in position to do was to be prepared and build a part of the system in the event the user replied back to that message. This is one of the things that we're noticing with AI. One, we normally would send an email and say, do not reply because this email address is not being monitored and That was just to make sure that the human did not get bogged down with additional work on top of their already full plate of work that they had to do. So this was meant to be, in classic tradition, a one-way communication. Like, here's the confirmation, that's it. But now we're opening up that channel and we're actually changing that behavior. And in that message, it says, Dear Deshaun, thank you for registering for the Friendsgiving. We got your guest count as 4. We see that there's no meal restrictions. And we noted that in order to take your business to another level, to take your real estate journey to another level, you are looking for investors. Okay, great. Then it would say, if you have any questions about the event, feel free to reply. I am Deshaun AI. If you need to get in touch with the real Deshaun, here's his contact information, and it would share out my information, right? And so it's 2 things that happened there. One, we made it very clear that they were communicating with an AI bot. Part of that is because I didn't want them to, one, go looking for a person that did not exist once they attended the event. And you can mask that, right? You can be like, oh no, that's just a booking company and da da da. But we didn't want to do that, right? And then 2, I thought it was important to let them know that it was an AI, because if it made a mistake or if it responded in an odd way, for the person, the human on the other end of that, to be okay that, like, okay, I get it. This is an AI. It made a mistake, and this is weird that, when I'm impressed that it's responding in this way, almost like a human. But when it says something weird, it's like, oh yeah, that's an AI. Okay, I'm good with it. No harm, no foul. Versus if it was a human, there can be, agitation, there could be emotions, and then all this other good stuff that we can all avoid just by making it clear that you're the AI. Secondly, or lastly, I gave them my real contact information, because if they felt like they were in a conversation loop, right? Like they say something and the AI responded to the one way, then they try to ask for clarity and the AI responded in the same way. That's where things got very, very interesting. So having a human that says, hey, I need help here, or I need, an address, or I need help with hotels or directions or whatever the case may be. They had an actual human that they can contact, and I monitored my phone throughout the night for that very reason. Okay, so this was actually stage 1. In the next video, I'm going to show you stage 2 of this actual solution with the AI, because it gets richer than this scenario. In stage 2, we actually introduce and set up the platform of how to have a 2-way dialogue with the LLM, and how the LLM offloaded the coordinating task, event coordination task, from our human, and handled a lot of the questions that the guests had. And I can go take you through the history of the chat, so that way you can see firsthand of how interesting this AI responded and helped guests and made this such a successful event. So until then, I'll see you in the next video when we cover part 2.